Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of CEO and Market Expert Interviews. I'm your host, Lucy, and some of you know me as Triangle Investor from Acess. I'm delighted to have Craig Parry in my show. Craig is a co-founder of Inventa Capital. He is on the top of the list of the people who I respect in the industry and whose track record is both impressive and I would say impeccable. That said, Craig, welcome to my show. It is really great to have you over.
Lucian, a real pleasure. Thank you for that introduction. I wouldn't say it's impeccable, but we can go into some of that detail.
Oh, almost impeccable. Okay. I believe that majority of my followers know a lot about you, but nevertheless, I would like to ask you that we start with this interview with your origin story and your successes in the past. Tell us more, please, Craig.
So I'll go way back. I've got my mother here staying with me in Whistler at the moment. And she reminded me last night that my grandfather was a tin miner. So exploration of mining are in the blood, as it were. I joined Rio Tinto out of university back in 1999. I spent 8 years with Rio Tinto exploration and corporate development roles around the world. Lived in Chile, China, and then had a global iron ore, bauxite and coal generative role towards the end there. I worked in uranium with them. I joined Owen Hegarty at Oxiana briefly. We left Oxiana together and started the Tigers Realm group of companies. The most successful and prominent of which are NextGen, which Lee Courier, Chris McFadden and I founded in 2010. That's now a $5 billion company based on great exploration and development work. We started at Tigers Realm Group. We started EMR Capital. I'm a general partner at EMR. We've got 3 billion of funds and about 8 billion of assets under management there, so a major private equity fund. And then I moved to Canada in 2015-16 to start ISO Energy, which we spun out of NextGen. We made it another discovery there. It's now a $1 billion company. Around that time, I joined Skeena as the chairman. Walt and I took control of Skeena. We acquired the Eskay Creek project. Walt's been doing a tremendous job there. That's just hit $1 billion market cap in recent days. We raised $1 billion in debt financing recently. We announced we're fast moving that Eskay Creek project into development and production. And then Mike Connaught and I joined forces about 6 years ago to start Inventa Capital. We've started a number of companies, the most prominent of which today is really Vizsla Silver. We discovered the giant Panuco Copala silver district in Mexico. And we put out a PEA on that project a couple of months ago. Only a month ago. That's demonstrated that that's one of the world's great silver projects. We'll be building one of the biggest silver mines in the world down there. Perhaps for my sins, I'm the chairman and CEO of Vizsla Copper at the moment. I'm passionate about copper. It's my favorite metal. It's the most important metal to humanity. And I'm very, very bullish on the copper price, Lucy. And I think we're going to see extraordinary moves in the copper price over the next few years and certainly the next 5 years. We may well see $30 per pound of copper. And so you want to be long copper, and that's what we're doing at Vizsla Copper, getting our investors ourselves very long copper with great projects in a great jurisdiction that we can bring into development on that sort of time frame.
I couldn't agree more. And with that kind of impressive background, you're the right man to ask you this question. What ingredients are necessary to create and run a successful mining or exploration company?
Oh, look, it's a good question. I think firstly, you've got to start with people. And, if I put my investor hat on more and more, I'm sort of, investing my own sort of, family money these days rather than running companies as much. But, you have to back the right people with a track record, people that are hungry, driven, capable, people who can, not only do the technical stuff very well, but the corporate stuff very well, and particularly, finance a company. We have that here. I think, my companies have raised over 1.1 billion in the past 15 years since I went out on my own, left Rio Tinto. But ticking all of those boxes are important. And those people may not have the best projects to start with, but they'll certainly have them by the end of it. So it's a people business as much as anything. Rick Rule, we were both at the Boca Raton conference, Rick's conference. He's often got some very, prominent people there like Robert Friedland, Bob Quartermain, Sean Rusin. I was on stage with some of those fellas down there, and he makes the point that small group of people have made him the bulk of the returns that he's had over the years. So finding those right people and backing them is all important, I think. And then in terms of projects, usual sort of stuff. You want grade to be on your side. It's got to have scale. In good jurisdictions, I like to talk about size of the prize, cost of the test, and chance of success is how we assess everything that we do in the space. You can assess anything in your life on that basis, but size of the prize, you want to go after assets, projects, opportunities that justify the work you're doing in your investment and investing your shareholders' money. The prize has got to be big enough. And so, for example, in copper, you want to be looking at porphyry copper projects that can be big enough to support it. Chance of success, cost of the test, all important. You don't want to blow your brains out, spend, all of your investors' money in difficult locations where access is hard, where you need helicopters all the time, those sorts of things, where it's very expensive to test a target or an idea or a business thesis. You want to be, and that goes to the cost of acquiring a project as well. And what I would say is this market at the moment is throwing up some extraordinary bargains where there's a lot of cheap opportunities in copper out there at the moment. Vizsla Copper is a good example. So, the entry price has got to be right, and you don't want to spend too much money testing your thesis. And then lastly, chance of success. When it comes to exploring, you want to do it in places where you have a high likelihood of success. So in uranium, where I've had a fair bit of success, I suppose, the Athabasca Basin's the right place to do it. NextGen, we founded ISO Energy. I founded and led. We found two major uranium deposits. Cosa, our latest uranium business run by Keith Bodnarchuk and Steve Blower, again, focused on the Athabasca Basin. You improve your likelihood of making a discovery by focusing on those sorts of terrains. And just, exactly the same as Vizsla Silver, of course, we focused on the Mexican Sierra Madre. I think out of the 11 billion ounce silver districts on the planet, 8 of those are in that Mexican Sierra Madre. So you improve your chances of making a discovery that will deliver for your shareholders by focusing on those sorts of areas.
Yeah, multiple commodities and companies were connected or are connected today with your name and Inventa's name. I would like to cover them today, and we will do that by starting. You mentioned the Vizsla Silver. So far, a very successful story with Panuco project in Mexico. Actually, you announced PEA, you said months ago, but it was like, I believe, 2 weeks ago. Brilliant numbers are out, and if I remember correctly, it was NPV after tax more than 1 billion, something like that, 1.1 billion. And you had IRR, it's around 85%, if I remember correctly. And what I do remember, it's a 9-month period return. So that is really fantastic numbers. So how do you see Panuco going forward?
Yeah, that's right. And that was, of course, at sort of fairly conservative price estimates and a 5% discount rate. If you plug in today's metal prices, gold and silver price, you end up with an NPV of about Canadian $2.5 billion, an IRR of about 110%, and a payback on capital of under 6 months. So it's an extraordinary project. It's a project that time's sort of forgotten away. You don't find too many more projects like that on the face of on the crust of the planet. It's got a 5-to-1 NPV to CapEx ratio. I haven't seen a project like that ever in my career. So it's an extraordinary project. The team, Simon Smerlek, of course, joined us. Simon's one of my best friends and on the board of both Vizsla Silver and Vizsla Copper. But he left Ausenco Engineering back in March. Ausenco is the world's largest independent EPCM contractor in the mining space. Simon's had his hand led to his team to build over 50 major mining projects. So we've probably got the best mining and mine development brains on the planet on the team now. And Simon's fast advancing that project. We've completed the PEA now. that PEA, I should say, a lot of the elements of it were at pre-feasibility study level. And because it's obvious that this is going to be a mine, we've cut out a redundant, or what we see as a redundant stage in the development cycle, and that's the pre-feasibility study. There's no need to do that. So we've moved straight into the feasibility study, and we're doing all of that feasibility study work. We're getting in place to put in our permit application here in the coming weeks. Being in Mexico, Mexico sometimes gets a bad rap. We don't see it that way. Mexico is a fantastic jurisdiction, and you can get mining permits done in a really reasonable time frame. So we'll get those applications in, and you'd expect sort of 12 months to get the mining permits in, complete our feasibility study, and then late next year, Lucian, we will be in development. It's a very modest capex project, $220 million US. You have very much debt fundable. Simon built for Silvercrest, their Babacanora mine down there in Mexico. That's the last big silver mine built in Mexico. So Simon knows what he's doing on that front. We've brought across an ex-Macquarie banker who led the debt part of Macquarie Bank, sat on the other side of the table from us. He's now joined us, Chris Adams, to advise us on the debt funding of the project. So we're getting all those building blocks in place to move that project into production as quickly as we possibly can. In the meantime, we've still got a couple of drill rigs turning. Look out for more good results to come over the coming months. We're still drilling at Kapala, for example. We've had some absolutely spectacular drill hits over the years. So lots of good news as we move into, and people are concerned always about the Lassonde curve and value destruction and dilution while you're in the depths of the development part of the project. Given that this is a modest scale project, low capex, very modest scale mine, 3,200 ton per day mine, we're really skipping ahead and going to skip a lot of the sort of the doldrums you go through in that Lassonde curve. So I'm very excited. It's of the things that I've been involved in, it's my favorite to date. And certainly, I've put my money where my mouth is. I think I've put 7 million of my own and my family's money into the company so far, and continue to support it on that basis.
Disclaimer, I put the money also in Vizsla Silver. I'm a shareholder, and I'm a proud shareholder, and I like what I hear over here. Another company that I'm also even bigger shareholder is Cosa Resources, and you have a strong uranium background. You said it. You were a part of the next gen ISO Energy and Rio Tinto as well. I want to hear your take on Cosa Resources. Do you believe that? I know you have a similar approach here with Cosa. I mean, you're repeating the similar stuff when you discovered the hurricane deposit at ISO Energy hurricane deposit. So do you think, I know it's a hypothetical question, but do you believe that you can repeat the same success with Cosa finding a new hurricane or even arrow deposits?
Yeah, great question. That's the key question, isn't it? This goes back to backing people. Here we've got, I think, an exploration team that has an unprecedented track record in uranium exploration. So that's the first thing. The guys, so Steve Blower joined us at NextGen back in 2014. Steve was he was our owner's rep on the first resource we put out on Arrow. Steve then came with me when we started ISO Energy. I bought out of NextGen 4 small licenses. They were really sort of postage stamps, very small licenses. And then over the next 3 years, from 2016 to 2019, when the market was very bad, we staked and bought projects such that we became the third biggest landholder in the Athabasca Basin, or Eastern Athabasca Basin, I should say. And Steve really drove that strategy. Steve joined us from Denison, where he discovered the Griffin part of the Wheeler River ore body. Steve, Andy Carmichael, Justin Rodko then led the discovery of our Hurricane deposit, I think the highest grade uranium deposit that's ever been discovered in the Athabasca Basin. Fabulous discovery. And then Steve, we spun out of that, we started selling off our projects we sold a project to an Aussie company called 92 Energy, and Steve made another discovery for them there. So
Yeah.
Steve's sort of got an unprecedented track record, Steve and Andy, I should say, and Justin, they've discovered 2 world-class and 3 uranium deposits. I don't think anyone else has done that in the past 50 years. So I'm backing the guys. Keith Bodnachuk, who was my head of corporate development at ISO Energy, is the CEO of Cosa. He's also my global head of Corp Dev. Keith's brilliant. And the thing about these guys, they know the Athabasca Basin like the back of their hand, particularly the Athabasca Basin. So they know the projects they want that increase their chance of discovery. So they're putting their foot on those things all the time. They've been incredibly active on the corporate development front. The Ursa project gives us some outstanding targets. There's almost certainly going to be a major uranium deposit hiding in that conductive belt. And then the guys keep acquiring new projects. So I think we are a better than even chance of making another major discovery, and I back those guys to do it. Hence, I've been happy to write big checks into Cosa myself, and will continue to do so. It's since I stepped away from NextGen and ISO Energy, this is my sole uranium investment and play. I love the story, love the team, and I really back them to do it again. They've got some great people and great targets.
Yeah, definitely agree on Cosa. You have 2 Vizslas. The second one is Vizsla Copper. How do you see that development? How do you see development of that company? And please provide us some breakdown of the company.
Yeah, look, the strategy there has been a little bit like what we did with ISO Energy. People were giving away copper projects in the recent years, with the downturn that we've seen. We acquired Consolidated Wood Jam, the company, which gave us this giant wood jam project about 2 years ago. That project already has drilled out 2 billion pounds of copper and nearly 1 million ounces of gold. We paid $11 million in stock for that company. And then in March this year, we acquired the Poplar project through the acquisition of Universal Copper. We paid just under $3 million in stock to acquire another 2 billion pounds of copper. So you can sort of see the strategy playing out there, put our foot on unloved projects cheaply. I think that Poplar project, to get that much metal that cheaply is extraordinary. And that will be one of the great bargains of all time, I think, when we get a roaring metal market in the years to come. We've got all of that metal. We've got, particularly at Wood Jam, there's some in amongst a moderate grade resource of about 0.45% copper. We've got 2 billion pounds of copper and 1 million ounces of gold at that sort of 0.45% grade. Within that, there's some very, very high grades. The best drill hole to come out of our Deerhorn porphyry was about 110 meters at 2.6 grams gold and 0.44 copper. So we know there's high grade in there. We're focused at the moment on understanding those. Previous explorers were really drilling for tons and pounds of copper. Now we're drilling to better understand the controls on the high-grade mineralization. We're drilling at the moment, actually. We've just had the rig at that high-grade zone on Deerhorn, and I'm pleased to report we've seen some great-looking rocks come out of the ground on that, and that extends that deposit to the south. We're waiting on assays. We'll have some of those assays in time for the Beaver Creek conference in 3 weeks. So look out for news on that front, but really focusing on those high grade zones to expand. There's already at Deerhorn and Megabuck, there's already 33 million tons at 0.7% copper, which is well above the average mine grade of copper today. We're looking to expand those zones and then look at studies and development of a project around those high grade zones. So I'm excited about that. There's a few ways for investors to win on Vizsla Copper. Firstly, you've got exposure to over 4 billion pounds of copper in a rising copper market. That will be worth a hell of a lot more money. You've got these higher grade zones and a team that's focused on understanding those and developing a project on those. So lots of ways to win there. And then I should also say that we continue, we're not out of the woods in terms of market conditions for copper explorers and junior companies. There's still, we still see some bargains out there. So we'll still try and make other acquisitions as we go here.
Okay. Another name from Inventa's group is Targa Exploration Corp. You're at the advisory board at Targa. So can you tell me more about Targa? What are you doing currently over there, and what are some of the next steps for the company?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. We've sort of really trimmed the number of companies that we're working on in recent times, and we've kept this one in the fold. We haven't looked to sell it. We like this for its exploration potential. We actually started it as a lithium explorer, and we've got some great looking lithium projects. But of course, lithium's come off the boil in recent years, recent months. But what we found, we did a deal with Zach Flood, who's very successfully has a company called Kenneland. Zach's starting to build up a serious track record as an exceptional explorer. Zach and his team have done the work for us on our project in Quebec called Opanaca. Again, micro cap company. I think its market cap today is probably $7 million, Lucian. Very, very cheap.
Yeah.
The bulk of the money that's gone into it is our money so far. And that'll, one of the things that sets us apart from a lot of other companies out there or groups out there is that we write big checks and support our own stories. So we've put a lot of money into that. And I'm thrilled that we have, because the guys, to our sort of surprise, discovered a gold in till anomaly on Opanaca that's absolutely astonishing. It's an enormous area. It's sort of about 5 kilometers east to west. We're tracing that up ice. The guys are in the field at the moment following that up. But the tenor of that anomaly, the grades that we've seen in the tills and the scale of the anomaly suggests that there's a very big gold deposit hiding somewhere nearby. The scale of it is similar to the Eleanor anomaly that led, the anomaly that led to the discovery of the Alien deposit, which was I think 5 million ounce plus deposit now in production. Really impressed with what we've got there. Very, we're waiting with bated breath as to what we see from this field season and this field campaign, but I think we're a very good chance of making a major gold discovery there. So we're excited for that. And we've got all this other lithium opportunity ahead of us as well. But, the focus is very much on this gold for now.
Okay. You have Tin One Resources is also in Inventa's portfolio. What can you tell me about the company and projects over there?
Yeah, Tin One's been an interesting one. We've got some great assets down there in Tasmania that we acquired 5 years ago very cheaply. I think, we were expecting much more from the tin price. Of course, it's a scarce commodity. No real exploration's been done for tin globally in the last 50 years. Tin price just hasn't complied. So those projects have sat there. If the tin price rallies, that will be a good outcome for people. But, it's sort of trading at a fairly nominal value at the moment. We're just going to sit on those until we see an improvement in that market.
Craig, you are a chairman of Gold Bull Resources as well, with gold projects in Nevada. What are you doing currently over there, and what are some important milestones for this company?
Yeah, so we put out a PEA on the Sandman project about 18 months ago. Good looking project. There's a lot of resource upside there, but it's quite expensive to drill in Nevada. So we did a small financing about 6 months ago, again heavily supported by ourselves. In a rising gold market, that will have more value, that company. But at the moment, we're not doing a hell of a lot. We're really just sort of doing a bit more prospecting on the property. We've had a lot of interest from potential acquirers. We're assessing all of that as we go. It's a fabulous project. I think that Gold Bull, the Sandman asset, at today's metal prices, has an NPV of about $250 million. That's in a company with a market capitalization of $6 million. So some tremendous upside there. We don't have a lot of cash, so we're just conserving our cash and waiting to see what the gold price does. And I think, we're a very good chance when the US starts cutting interest rates next month. I think we're a very strong chance of seeing $3,000 an ounce gold, and that company will be worth a heck of a lot more in that market.
Got it. Craig, can you tell me more about the DNA of Inventa Capital? It is a form of merchant bank and a project generator. What is your vision with Inventa going forward?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. It is a merchant bank. I suppose, as I mentioned there, my company's, if you include Skeena and NextGen and a few others, we've raised over 1.1 billion in the last 10 or 15 years. So, you know, we typically look for new mining opportunities. We do tend to look at earlier stage projects. I've got a very, very good team of exploration geologists, guys like Steve Blower. Dr. Chris Leslie has joined us and advises on a lot of what we do. Chris is one of the British Columbia and Canada's leading porphyry geologists and experts. We've got some, you know, Dr. Jesus Velador, who is VP Exploration of Vizsla Silver, is one of the world's great silver explorers. So we've got a fabulous team, and so we're in a great position to assess earlier stage opportunities. We do, you know, we're really focused our energy and efforts on the two Vizslas, Cosa and Targa for the time being, and Goldbull, I should say, and really trying to get the most out of those. I suppose we see at the moment that any time we spend outside of those, particularly Vizsla Silver, where we're going to build one of the world's great silver mines, is probably wasted energy. You know, if there are extraordinary opportunities that come across our desk or we identify ourselves, we'll act on those. But for the moment, we're very much focused on making those few companies reach their full potential. So we've scaled back a little bit in recent years. May not be the right thing to do, but I think we're in the right metals. We love the battery metals. I think our slogan is providing the green metals that the world needs. So very much focused on those battery metals with a serious focus on copper, silver, and uranium.
Is there an option maybe that you list Inventa Capital one day on the stock exchange? I'm sure I would be the first buyer, definitely. So I know a lot of people that would buy that stock. So is that an option on the table?
You know, that's not really something we've ever considered. I suppose at the moment, you know, it is, as you say, merchant bank and a project generator.
Yeah.
It's food for thought. It's not something we've really considered. We don't actually generally invest through Inventa Capital. We typically write checks into our companies personally ourselves, but and Invent has never been set up to be a profit center. You know, it has the head lease on our building, for example, or on our office, but or it never makes any money, you know, so it's not something that we've considered thus far. But in the longer term, and look, of course, I've got experience in funds management, being a general partner there at Inventa Capital. I don't mind that concept, and we may turn it into a fund one day, but for the time being, we're happy enough to get our hands dirty and run these companies and move projects into development and production.
Okay. I want to talk a bit about the financing of the exploration and development companies and your general thoughts on the access to capital. Is it hard to get the money today to fund the companies compared with the time when you were at NextGen or ISO Energy?
Yeah, look, it sort of it ebbs and flows, you know. I suppose, you know, with our track record, we've made a lot of people a lot of money over the last 10 years, despite very challenging markets. And so, you know, we've always got people that are willing to back us, particularly, you know, we really lead the way, put our, you know, money where our mouths are and write serious checks ourselves, my partners, you know, Mike, Simon and I and Mahesh. You know, we invest heavily ourselves. And so that engenders support from the market and from major investors. You know, we made some serious, you know, guys like Warren Irwin, Peter Brown, serious high net worth guys, fund managers. We've made them a lot of money over the years. So we're in a privileged position that we never, like, it's never easy to do a financing, but for us a little bit easier than some of our competitors, perhaps. I think still a very choppy market. Like if you look at Vizsla Copper, we raised money 4.5 months ago at only 7 cents a share. The copper price started to rally. Everyone wanted to get involved. So we did another financing at 12 cents or 11 cents a share. We've come off the boil a little bit with the copper price falling, although today I see it's roaring back to life. We're at $4.15. I think we're only at $3.96 there a few days ago. So the copper price is starting to do things again. In this sort of choppy market, you need to find windows where you can finance, and we did that with that last 11-cent financing in Vizsla Copper. It's still a tricky time. I reckon we're about to come into a serious bull market. Everything, the way some of these stocks are trading, particularly the juniors, would suggest that we're in a very, very dire market, but it's not the case. You've got gold nudging up against all-time highs. Silver's pushing back towards $30 today. Copper's above $4 again. Things are looking up, but you'd never know it from some of the junior equities.
Yeah.
I think that will change. I think when we see that first interest rate cut out of the US, we'll see gold and silver really roar to life. There may be some threat of a recession, although I think that's diminishing by the day. That will continue to drive the copper price on over the next 6 months. And that's all before we go into, a phase where we see these massive impacts from this electrification theme. And that's, over the next 5 years. I think you want to be very much exposed to all of those metals, but particularly that hedge in gold, exposed to photovoltaic build out in silver, and then general electrification in copper. And as I say, I think you're going to see the same market dynamics as we saw last time around, whereby, the copper demand went up 30% from 2000 to 2011. That was enough to increase the copper price by 6 times. So from 70 cents a pound to $4.60 a pound. We're about to go through the exact same change in supply demand fundamentals over the next 5 years. But the backdrop is very, very different this time around. You can't expand Escondida much without spending $20 billion. There's very little exploration and development and permitting work done on major copper projects in the last 10 years. There's no way we're going to be able to keep up as a supply sector. And so I think you're going to see extraordinary boom in copper prices. Don't be surprised if you see $30 or $40 per pound of copper by the back end of this decade.
I will put that in my headline of this video, copper $30. No, just kidding. Final question, Craig. How do you see broad markets performing in the upcoming period, and do you see the commodities super cycle happening?
Yeah, look, it's a really good question. I think that we're going, as I say, right at the moment, things remain choppy. The mid-tiers have done very well, and developers. So if you look at Vizsla Copper is a good example. Skeena, where I'm the lead director, is a good example. Both of those companies have doubled in value in the past 4 or 5 months. Skeena particularly, you see, and we're starting to see, so those guys have moved. The juniors are still largely flat. It typically takes 12 months before the money circulates out of those stories back into the junior market. So I think that happens over the next 12 months. So investors have still got a little bit of time to get set in the junior space. So that's the broader thing. Interestingly enough, we're starting to see this M&A cycle really kick off. And of course, on Monday, we saw the announcement that Goldfields are acquiring a Cisco Mining, at a very big premium, 55% premium. So $2.1 billion takeout there. Interestingly enough, and people might not realize this, but when that happens, Sean Rusin's a mate of mine. He tells me that in that scenario, by the end of day one, arbitrage funds will own 30, 40, 50% of the company. And a lot of people are out of the story at that point in time. And within a few days, the arbitrage funds out of the US and Connecticut will own the bulk of your stock. That money then gets recycled. And we've seen that. I saw a good note from BMO that the obvious trade now for people who are taking money out of Cisco Mining is to go into Skeena. Well, that played out on Monday and Tuesday. We saw the Skeena share price jump nearly 30%. We're now a $1.1 billion company. So a huge amount of money flowing into Skeena. And that M&A cycle is really kicking off now. So recycling of funds will come in. The majors have been a bit slow. I suppose Newmont's been very active in terms of their success in acquiring Newcrest, for example. Barrick's probably a little bit flat-footed, but those guys with their sort of assets and diminishing production profiles have really got to get their skates on and start acquiring these mid-tier and development opportunities. So I think the M&A cycle, we're firmly kicked off now, and you'll see more of that happening over the years to come. So, there's so much to like about our sector. Rising metal prices, we're already at good metal prices, rising metal prices, a lack of exploration work, so a lack of ability to supply the market as these things get developed, and then the M&A cycle and the chance of a takeout of someone like a Vizsla Silver or a Skeena, and then eventually a Vizsla Copper. There's so much to like about our sector.
Yeah, sorry, this is the final one. When you mentioned M&A, what about uranium M&A? What's your take on the Paladin Vision deal? Do you see that kind of deals more in the future?
Yeah, look, I think so. Of course, it's a trickier, Canada sort of precludes serious sort of foreign investment to some extent. You're not going to see Chinese groups come in and acquire things here. But I do think that, to my mind, an obvious opportunity would be for a Rio Tinto or a BHP to take out NextGen. Clearly, Arrow is the best uranium deposit ever discovered. It's true tier one asset. Lee's doing a great job and determined to build that project himself, but I wouldn't be surprised if a major or Cameco take that out, or perhaps an oil and gas major. You could see them. And look, I do think it's ripe for consolidation. We're bound to see more of it.
Yeah, definitely. Craig Parry, thank you for coming to my show. It was a great chat, as I expected. I really enjoyed it, and I hope we will catch up sometime soon again.
Yeah, Lucian, a real pleasure, and great to be on and connect. And yeah, we'd love to be back on. Thank you.